How do you know if you're in a calorie deficit? Because sometimes you're doing all the right things, and every time you step on a scale, nothing seems to be changing. And how are you even sure that fat loss is happening? It can leave you confused and despondent, and for many, they give up. So I want to break down, how do you genuinely know whether or not fat loss is happening and that you're in a real calorie deficit? Let's explore. If you've ever spoken to someone and they say that they're on a diet, chances are they're trying to control their calories in some way. My name's Paul, I run Hounds of Health here in Wandsworth and Putney, London, and I help people take control of their health and give them strategies that they can use on a daily basis that make fat loss, muscle gain, and just increasing their strength easy to do over a long period of time. One of the things that pretty much everyone wants to do, whether they say it or not, certainly say it out loud or not, is that they want to change their body composition. They want to drop their body fat and they want to feel better. And often the outward expression of that is weight loss, and is the most common metric by which people judge their progress. Let's be honest, going to the gym, lifting weights is fantastic. We learn a lot about ourselves, but for many, and particularly those without a strategy or personal trainer or someone who's done a bit of thinking about the plan, you're never quite sure if you're actually seeing any changes. Am I getting stronger? I don't know. However, it's a universal metric that everyone understands, and that is weight loss. You step on a scale, it's very easy to do. If it's going down, generally that means good. If it's going up, generally that means bad. And that's just the way it is, and that's what the entire fitness industry is geared around. And for God knows how many years, it's the main metric in which people measure progress. However, we all know that the weighing scale can be a very confusing thing to stand on. We don't have the full picture. It can fluctuate wildly, going up and down on a daily basis. And also, is it water retention? Is it body fat? Is it muscle? Is it something else? Is it bone density, for example? All of these things can contribute to wild fluctuations on a daily basis to that main metric that everyone tracks, which is weight loss. Now, do I recommend that people take their weight? Of course. I think it's a great way of judging progress. I know I've just said that it can be confusing, but if you've got a lot of weight to lose and it's going down, generally that means something's happening, and generally that means fat loss is happening. And like anything, a good personal trainer or a good journey or a good program will work on a process, and it will be looking at trends, trending towards strength, trending towards more function, trending towards more skill and confidence, trending to more towards better body composition, trending towards more weight loss. And therefore, weight can be part of that trend. You've just got to take an eagle-eye view where you step back and look at things from a maybe a month or 6 month time frame. Now, the challenge that you often have is that many people want to do these things quickly, and when they do them quickly, the margin for error really does narrow. Now, we run a 12-week program. We've called it Emergence, and it's a program designed to help people change their body and get rapid body composition changes. That means dropping of body fat, increases of muscle, and obviously there's an aesthetic element to that. They look and feel great, and that's what most people want. It's not where everyone needs to start, because sometimes people just need to walk through the door and just start training. But for once someone's built a bit of a rhythm, and they've maybe got a little bit of training under their belt, and they're starting to build that muscle, then we can accelerate and build in some other skills. But whilst we're taking people on that journey, they can often be very confused about whether or not they're making progress. They can be very despondent, stepping on the scale as things changes. So how do you know if you're in a calorie deficit? How do you genuinely know? The first things first is that you have to have a plan which will ensure that you are in a calorie deficit, okay? So my initial thing to do is create a system, and that system has to pull in lots of data. And without the data, you're going to be controlled by the metric you don't record. So if you want to see weight loss and you want to know that you're in a calorie deficit, we've got to track those areas that are going to directly indicate that. There's no point tracking bone density if you're looking at weight loss, is there? So what we do is we need to put systems in place, and those systems will allow us to capture data. That data will give us the information we need to know whether or not we're in a calorie deficit. And let's be honest, as I've already mentioned, it is over time. On a daily basis, you may be in a surplus or a deficit or in maintenance, but over a course of time, you could be in a steady deficit. Now, on a program where we've got a shorter time frame, we need to be in a more aggressive deficit. And therefore, in order to be in a more aggressive deficit, we need to have more structure. We have to have higher compliance, and we have to make sure that we have a higher skill level of implementation. So what I always do is start with a calorie target. We've got to work out what someone's basal metabolic rate is, what they burn at rest. So BMR means the amount of calories that your body burns at rest. Say if you were asleep for 24 hours a day, what does your body need to maintain its functions? That's maintain muscle mass, maintain brain function, metabolic health, all those things, breathing, digestion, all of those things go towards BMR, the basal metabolic rate. Then anything above that is contributing to additional movement and function. So that could be the number of calories that you burn digesting food. It could be the number of calories you burn walking around. It could be doing what they call NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. All the other things that we don't even take into account, like me waving my hands at the moment, me brushing my teeth in the morning, me doing things, just moving from one part of the room to another, shuffling papers. All those things is not exercises that we don't go, right, my commute is an exercise. Walking from one side of the room is exercise. We don't count that. There's also things like step count. If you get a certain amount of steps in intentionally, whether it's your cardiovascular fitness that you add in, your commute to work on a bike, going for a jog. And then the strength training on top of that contributes to your calories. Now, what I don't do is create a calorie target based on adding all those calories potentially consumed together and saying that's how much you're doing. If you burn 300 calories walking, that gives you an extra 300 calories to play with. We don't really work on those terms. So what we do is once we've established the BMR, we use a couple of different calculations. And there's some great systems out there, and most fitness apps will give you a rough calorie target to hit. And it depends how aggressive you want to be in the time frame. Some of those apps, and I just recommend, I'm not going to give you a calculation. You could just type it into the internet, calculations for weight loss. There are lots of ways of doing it. But depending on how aggressive you want to be, and you have to be more aggressive with your calorie target if you have a shorter timeline, then essentially, once you've established BMR, you've established what maintenance is based on your current movement, I would always say, don't be overly optimistic. You are probably not in the Royal Marines. You are probably not a farmer. You are probably not a professional athlete. And therefore your movement is going to be more on the conservative side. So you may need to have a slightly lower calorie target than you think. Once you've established that, then you've got to ensure that you're in the right that you're consuming the right amount of calories on a daily basis. And that's really where the strategy comes in. So how do you ensure, once you have the calorie target, that you're actually in a deficit? First things first, it goes back to me saying that you've got to have a system. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So if on a daily basis you're guessing everything and guesstimating, depending on your level of skill, you're probably going to be off by a margin of error of at least probably 30 to 40%. There's a great video online, you'll have to find it yourself because I can't remember the tags in it. But there's a lady who believes that she's only consuming, I think something like 1,700 calories. But actual fact, when they test her urine, she's actually consuming over about 3,500 because she just there's a reporting bias. So again, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems, and our system has to be able to capture the data. So when it comes to a calorie deficit, there's no point giving yourself a number if you are not willing to track the number and ensure that you are reaching the number. So there are strategies within the number, the macro split, protein, fat, carbohydrate, that can ensure we're more likely to hit it feeling full and being able to hit our body composition goals. But really this conversation is about, how do I know I'm in a calorie deficit? Well, firstly, you're going to physiologically feel hungry. Okay, and for most people, they go into a panic when they feel hungry. They don't know the difference between mild hunger and starvation. I think that's something you've got to get used to. You've got to get used to being mildly hungry for most of the time to know that you're in a calorie deficit. Starvation is no doubt a very different experience. And any plan that you do, whether it's a fasting program, a low carb program, a high carbohydrate, low fat program, all of them are trying to manipulate your calorie target. Skipping a meal is just a way of cutting 300 to 400 calories in a day. There are some benefits to having a period of time where the digestive system rests, but really they're all the same strategy, controlling calories. And if you don't calorie count, all you have is behavioral strategies, because, you know, otherwise it's guesswork. And I don't know anyone who can guess the exact calories of a teaspoon of butter. You can have a rule of thumb, and often we use the rule of a thumb of butter for an average sized woman, 1 thumb of butter, fist of vegetables, cupped hand of carbohydrate, and a palm of protein. These are all behavioral strategies, rules of thumb, that allow someone to keep a close attention to their portion size without being too exacting with their calories. But how do we know we're in a deficit? We have to have a system. We have to apply that system with a high level of skill, and that takes practice, that takes reps, and that has to take time. So if you are following a behavioral strategy, like the hand portion system, like cutting out a meal, like meal windows of eating, so don't eat after 8 p.m., you essentially create a behavioral strategy to cut the calorie deficit. And then you have other tracking methods. This is the only way. You've got to track multiple methods. Track your weight, track your measurements, track your body composition if you have access to that. You can track other areas depending on what you have, like a pinch thing to work out body fat percentage. So all of those things need to be tracked. Your food tracking, you know, tracking that you ate your meals and writing them down, having a plan. You've got to track those things to know if your behavioral strategy is working. Without that, you will not know whether or not your palm of protein, thumb of fat, fist of vegetables, cupped hand of carbohydrate is putting you in a calorie deficit. They are systems that are generally well tested. But for example, I've done low carb where I've eaten just a ton of fat and I've not lost any weight, because I can eat a lot in a short window of period. I can eat a lot if I put my mind to it. And you can quite easily overdo your calorie target in a short window of eating, okay? So key thing is to have strategies to track that data. Do you feel hungry? Is your waist measurement going in the right direction? Is your weight going in the right direction? Is your in-body scan or whatever machine you use, that going in the right direction? If you do an DEXA scanner, is that going in the right direction? All of those things give us feedback. And if we do them enough over time, we see the trend in the right direction, okay? Am I now fitting in my jeans? All of those things. Does my before and after look different, okay? Before and after is a brilliant track. They're what's the word? They can be a little bit ambiguous depending on where you're doing them and the angles that you choose. But over time, you've got the before and the after. 12 weeks later, you can certainly be sure that if you're in a calorie deficit, you'll see it in the pictures. The only way I can guarantee that you definitely are in a calorie deficit is if you track your calories through weighing them. And how you split your calories is up to you, with whatever protein targets you have, whatever carbohydrate targets, fat targets. That can be down between your preference, your coach's suggestion, or not even worry about it at all. Because if you're tracking your calories correctly, you will be in a deficit. And we do that by weighing our food. And the only way we can really do that is by firstly having a plan, knowing what our calorie target's going to be for the day and having planned it out, then making the meals that we plan to make and measuring them and weighing that food. But even then, over time, there can be fluctuations, because I don't like to put my clients in a massively aggressive calorie target too quickly. I like them to have built a few skills before we start dropping calories too fast. And for many people, they don't even need to go into an aggressive calorie deficit, because the skills that they're putting in place allow them to maintain good, steady weight loss and fat loss. And over time, that completely carves a new version of them. I think it all comes down to your strategies. The only way you can know you're in a proper calorie deficit is through measurement and tracking. And it is the boring thing that no one wants to do, because it requires your attention. And most people I deal with they struggle with attention. They struggle with attention, not because everyone's got ADHD. I'm sure that's the case for some people. But for most people, they are decision fatigued. They are overwhelmed by the other things in their life. And therefore this becomes another thing to do, another bit of mental processing, and therefore they're more likely to avoid it because it's uncomfortable. So all I would say is, in order to get through that stage, you have to just go hard on the basics. Repeat, 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 repeat while it is tough until it becomes easy. And that doesn't mean stop doing it. It just means now you do it with less internal friction. But ultimately, it's the only way I think you can guarantee you're in a calorie deficit is through tracking. You track your calories, you track your measurements, you track your metrics, you will be in a calorie deficit. So I do want to keep that simple today. If you've got any questions about your own strategy and you would like any tips, then let us know. If you're in the Wandsworth area, just get in touch. We'd love to work with you. And until next week, please do pass this to a friend and subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you're listening to this on. And I'll see you next week.